Hello, and welcome to another episode of Max's Monday podcast. Today we have guest Hina Sekine here to talk about
Hello.
something that's not robotics this time, because I'm pretty sure you're tired of robotics by now.
Yeah, just tired of robotics, even though this podcast is officially about robotics. Nice.
And it's not official anything, it's just officially about STEAM, I guess.
And then on your introduction page that you just made, it just says, Robotics members, our sister team at 609X, and explains all the members and how our competition got cancelled. Nice. It's not about robotics.
X still sucks.
Thanks, Max.
So today we want to talk about something that's still STEAM, because that's kind of our main idea for this entire... Yeah, because arts is still important, you know?
Art is important.
I think arts is not important.
I'm not saying that art is not important, because it's more like design, I guess, not art.
I mean, design in myself is pretty important, because you know design cycle and robotics and stuff. So, I want to ask you a really, really weird question.
Okay.
Considering you're kind of known in our school for this exact one topic.
I thought you were known in our school for this exact topic.
I suck at dimensions.
Asking weird questions. Sorry.
What's your opinion on dimensions?
Opinion on dimensions and what kind of topic?
Like, what? How do you view? Okay. Let's start with a simple topic. How do you view dimensions?
Literally. Sorry. You view dimensions.
Are you laughing?
No, I'm not laughing. You view dimensions because you have a two-dimensional vision embedded, but you can see shadows and depth. So technically, we can perceive that it's a third dimension, but we really have second-dimensional vision. So I guess that's how you see dimensions.
But then, if you have second-dimensional vision, how can we see depth, for instance?
It's because like shadows and different tones of the colors.
So we can infer third-dimensional stuff from a second-dimensional image, for instance.
Also, the way that your eyes are placed. If they're
So
different.
if you're saying that if we can somehow manage to see third dimension, we can infer what the fourth dimension is like.
But then, if you think about like A square in Flatland, if he could see in two-dimensional vision, he wouldn't see anymore while in the two-dimensional vision. Maybe when he was like lifted up to the third dimension, maybe he would see like kind of how we see the world, but he wouldn't see more while in the flat land. So technically, you couldn't infer the fourth dimension any better than you could right now, I think.
So are you saying that because we can't see everything in this plane that we exist on, we can't infer anything with the fourth dimension yet?
Maybe not infer, like you can do four-dimensional mathematics of any, without conceptually, not
Yeah,
conceptually.
vectors, right? Because you can express a fourth-dimensional vector to be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 instead of second-dimensional vectors.
And like in the book, How Things to Make and Do in the Fourth Dimension by Matt Parker, he talks about how you don't need to understand any of the dimensions to do mathematics in those dimensions, which is the really beautiful part about dimensions.
So we're basically saying that you don't need to understand what it is. You can actually just do stuff on it right away.
Yes, Physics 101.
That's actually kind of weird.
Yeah, it's weird, I guess. It's also pretty because if you want to like imagine something with application to third dimension, fourth dimension, you can perfectly use an analogy using second dimension, third dimension. For example, I was thinking of making a business of having an infinite three-dimensional bag, but it's connected to the fourth dimension, so it'll have infinite space because you can fit as many three-dimensional things into it. But then when I asked my mathematics teacher, they said that to use the second dimension, third dimension analogy, and it doesn't really make sense because the second dimension person reaching the third dimension to the second dimensional things is actually pretty chaotic. Yay.
So your business idea was to stuff a bunch of third-dimensional stuff into a single bag.
In the fourth dimension.
That sounds like a black hole.
Yes, totally not a black hole.
Would it be a black hole though? Because if you stuff an infinite amount of stuff into a finite space, that would mean that the mass of the bag will eventually coalesce on itself, and
Yay,
it will
singularity.
Wouldn't it though?
I guess it would, but
So your business is to basically sell black holes.
yes. Yay. Totally.
At one point, you'll be attracted to the bag of the Earth, and you will come flying around.
But it's more like for people who can't do things. Like if you have a million tabs open, the speed of your laptop is going to go down, and so maybe connect your hard drive to a black hole, and then you'll technically have.
I'd be worried about the black hole engulfing your computer first.
Okay. But maybe no black hole businesses in the foreseeable future.
Which is another question. If a black hole consists of everything, does it mean that it can theoretically hold anything in itself? Because if it's an infinite mass, that means that you can make another Hina out of it. You can make another, say, a MacBook out of it, theoretically speaking.
But doesn't that break the law of conservation of mass?
No, but if it has infinite mass, you can literally just take some piece of stuff out and just infinite
Can you
mass.
have infinite mass?
I mean, a black hole is defined as basically infinite mass. But I mean, it's not infinite mass. It's like a super high amount of mass, I guess.
super high amount of mass. Yay!
To the point that it breaks the space-time conundrum. Wouldn't it?
So a rip in space-time?
Yeah. So how would you take mass out of a rip of space-time? It's like you know how a bowling ball in the space-time fabric is like makes a bend in the space-time fabric, but then if it's like, which means that you could take it out just like how if you have a blanket and you put something on it, you can just take it out from the blanket. But if there's a hole in it and it basically extends to infinitely downwards, then you can't exactly take it out of it.
Then I can make my business and make all those giant bags out of all the infinite material provided by the black hole to make even more black holes.
No, my statement is I don't think you can take stuff out of a black hole and make stuff out of it. Also, how would you cut a black hole, for instance? It's an infinitesimally small point, isn't it?
White hole scissors.
But then, how do you have scissors that interact with space-time? Space-time is a fourth-dimensional construct.
I think this is nearing to string theory.
I think this is where we're actually going. Anyways.
Yay, back to dimensions.
No, but how do you have? Well, how do white hole scissors work? Because there's like I'm pretty sure there's a theory that a black hole and a white hole are just a tunnel to each other.
That are connected by strings.
So you're saying that if you make a string that could cut fundamental particle strings, you can basically sever the connection. But then where would a black hole lead then? What if it leads to nothing?
Wouldn't the black hole be the one end and then the white hole the other end? So an Einstein-Rosen bridge. Not really.
Yay. I mean, Einstein-Rosen bridge would work by basically having an actual connection between the two, so you don't violate the speed of light constraints. But then, I would presume that if you actually could make a scissor that could cut through space-time, that would be very weird, because a scissor would have to interact with the fourth dimension. Scientific fourth dimension, because some people here, like Hina, think that geometry fourth dimension is better.
It's not better, it's just better.
See? You just proved my point. This thing is better.
It's not better. It's just more
Why do you
logical.
reject the time definition?
I don't reject it. It's just kind of weird because it's spatial time. Yay!
But time is actually spatial too, because you could imagine this current second to be a single frame, and you could have multiple frames like that over a constant period of thing called time. So time is basically like a chain of third-dimensional blocks next to each other, wouldn't it?
So imagining in second dimension, third dimension, fourth dimension theories, imagine it second dimension, third dimension, and say that they're like...
Third dimension is basically just a bunch of thin second dimension strips on top of each other.
So literally, if you take a bunch of screenshots of your video each time you do something, and then you put them together, you can see a video what you did.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying here.
Nice.
I mean, that does lead to sixth dimension, because the fifth dimension is just a bunch of different times, which leads to multiverses and so on and so forth. So it doesn't violate the end dimensional. I mean, theoretically speaking, there must be a fifth dimension to a fourth dimension, right? Sixth dimension to a fifth dimension, seventh dimension to a sixth dimension.
In scientific terms?
Yeah.
But can't you just say that I define the 121st dimension by putting together backpack and water bottle?
Yeah, but the backpack has to be in the 120th dimension or something like that. Can you add dimensions? Like, can you have a fourth dimensional object and a sixth dimensional object? You merge it together and you get 10 dimensions.
Yeah, isn't that what superstring theory says? What
does that say?
Wait, I don't know if this is true, so please fact check me. But wasn't it defined as the Big Bang defined as the 4 dimensions? There were 10 dimensions initially, and then 6 dimensions peeled off from the 4th dimensions because they were too unstable or something.
Too unstable?
Yes.
So you're saying that dimensions are unstable by themselves?
No. Not. I think it's scientific. In Michio Kaku's, what's the title of the book?
Beyond
Einstein, yes.
I mean, even if the 6 dimensions were expression of 4th dimension, the 6 dimensions should be permeating our space too, just like the other 4 dimensions, wouldn't it?
But it's too small for us to perceive it.
Is that where strings come in? Strings are the 6 dimensions that define our existence, or isn't that?
Maybe. Sorry, I kind of got lost.
No.
Yay.
So you're saying that black hole basically ripped apart 4 dimensions from 6 dimensions because it's unstable? Are you sure it's not because of the energy created by the Big Bang is humongous? Because this huge explosion caused a whole bunch of particles to be fused to each other, which requires quite a bit of energy by itself. Wouldn't it?
Interdimensional bonding.
Interdimensional bonding, sure. But how would that work?
I mean, but instead of like interdimensional bonding in like a real world way, how about we think of it in a theoretical world way? Because that's not always easier.
But how do you construct a theoretical world? You just write on paper and be like, here's a simulation.
But Euclid's propositions are all about that.
Oh, okay. Go on.
Sorry, but then if you like have a flatland and then you put like a cube on it and make it float, then don't you have interdimensional interactions?
Can you elaborate on that further? Because I'm kind of lost.
Well, like imagine a plane, like a sheet of paper, and then you cut like a squareroid hole onto it, and then you put a cube inside the squareroid hole and let it levitate. And then you have interdimensional interactions. Imagine that the piece of paper is like a two-dimensional world.
I see. That
I mean, then,
I kind of don't understand what you just. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really complex thing to comprehend. I guess, understand what you just did.
like a piece of paper, a literal piece of paper, and then you cut a hole into it.
Yeah.
And then you like stab like a pen into it, and then if you imagine a piece of paper to be like a world and people living on it, then you have interdimensional interactions.
This is literally the black hole white hole theory.
I guess if you imagine this to be space-time.
Yeah, but then so we're saying that second, like other dimensions, like second dimension, first dimension, and so on, have their own black hole white holes. So we're saying that other dimensions, the second dimension, first dimension, for instance, have their own black holes, white holes.
But second dimension isn't space-time, is it?
It kind of is space-time in some regards, but actually you're right. Because the two dimensions can, we define the second dimension to be like the x and the y axis, but doesn't exactly have to be x and y axis, because two dimension just means that it could be like z and time, which seems awkward to be in first glance, I guess.
So you can choose which dimensions to represent what.
I mean, we chose x, y, z and time to be space-time, for instance. But that's only because that's the only dimension we can actually comprehend, because we actually live in it, compared to like some fictional geometrical fourth dimension that we don't even know exists.
So we need genetic engineering in order to get more senses to be able to perceive the world more.
And there's a problem with that. That's called biology.
Yay!
Evolution only allows you to get over certain. I mean, if DNA got so warped that a person could, I mean, I think as a whole, we don't know much about fourth-dimensional beings to really understand how fourth-dimensional people would exist.
I guess if we got a better understanding of how four-dimensional people exist, we can make cats glow blue.
Yes. And we can finally make genetically engineered fourth-dimensional human beings.
Nice.
Basically.
But can you make space go up inside of another direction it has never gone before?
What do you mean by space going up? What do you mean by?
A third-dimensional thing entering the fourth dimension, because I mean, I can spin this pencil around and alter its direction, but I can't make it go up into the fourth dimension.
Oh, so you're basically suggesting, you're basically suggesting that, for instance, if you have a second-dimensional object, can it go into the third dimension?
Like, by itself. I guess if you, like, crashed two things really hard, then you might be able to get it to the fourth dimension, or you might just end up with two broken pens.
I mean,
the latter being more common.
I would imagine, you could imagine the third dimension to be like a bunch of second dimensions laying on each other, and if the second dimensional frame that the object is on tilts around this an axis, then it would have entered theoretically a third dimension, because it would have seen like a movement in third dimension.
Here's an axis, and then here's a thing. It's rotating on the axis, but it's not entering the fourth dimension.
But it's feeling the effects of a third dimension, because it's experiencing a movement in the z direction in this scenario.
So it's like a...
So it's feeling the effects. It's not entering the third dimension, but it's feeling the effects of it in a way.
What do you mean by feeling the effects in a way?
Actually, I don't know. I don't even know if there will be effects in traveling across a dimension that you're not in. Because remember the pen spinning idea? Because when you tilt from a single frame to another frame, your z direction changes. Even though,
Oh, so you become completely flat to angled.
Basically.
Yeah, you would see other things, not in your own world.
That would be pretty cool. So basically, like,
So in one swoop, you can just see the world and not see the world and go back again.
I don't know why this makes me think of the Higgs boson energy theorem. There's this weird theorem that like the Higgs boson is actually in a semi-unstable state, and like once it jumps down to the lowest possible state, the entire space around it changes, and like it becomes, and then we basically get annihilated because matter changes.
Can you expand that further?
Because you know what Higgs boson is, right? It's like the thing that gives things mass. So if it were to collapse and enter a lower energy state, then matter could cease to exist in like a force field. And the thing is that once the Higgs boson enters a low energy state, this field that it actually emits, it expands over time. So it's still entered a lower energy state, but it'll also transform the dimensions because in this area, mass no longer exists. If that makes sense, or actually don't know. It could exist. So I don't know why, but that's just what that just randomly gave me up. Because you just talked about state changes.
So state changes are like dimension changes.
Because I mean, we only live in the third dimension, so I don't think we exactly know what will happen if we were to move into other dimensions.
I mean, we can technically we haven't perceived completely two-dimensional civilization yet. But
I don't think we will, considering our universe right now is merely a third-dimensional one.
Well, but since we can see in second dimension, then we can see one-dimensional civilization, two-dimensional civilization, and three-dimensional civilization. So,
yay!
Why can't we see two-dimensional civilization operating action? Well, why is it that when I don't know, like a flat? Why does it that? Because technically, if you make if a second dimensional civilization builds a house and they build like a perimeter, like of a square root or something, then we can always definitely see inside of this perimeter, even though other two-dimensional things maybe can't do that because they have one-dimensional vision. We have two-dimensional vision. We can just look
That
inside.
sounds like a very fun way to stalk someone as an alien.
Yes, I will go to the fourth dimension and stalk you in the fourth dimension.
Nice. But like, what I find interesting here is that like we don't actually have a second dimensional like civilization we could like observe because evolution once again basically made the first living being third dimensional, and then so far we haven't developed the ability to mutate into a different dimension.
Or maybe it can exist, but then the existence of a third dimension and
Yes, if that makes sense. Or actually don't know. It could exist. So I don't know why, but that's just what that just randomly gave me up. Because you just talked about state changes.
So state changes are like dimension changes.
Because I mean, we only live in the third dimension, so I don't think we exactly know what will happen if we were to move into other dimensions.
I mean, we can technically we haven't perceived completely two-dimensional civilization yet. But
I don't think we will, considering our universe right now is merely a third-dimensional one.
Well, but since we can see in second dimension, then we can see one-dimensional civilization, two-dimensional civilization, and three-dimensional civilization. So,
yay!
Why can't we see two-dimensional civilization operating in action? Well, why does it that when I don't know, like a flat? Why does it that? Because technically, if you make if a second dimensional civilization builds a house and they build like a perimeter, like of a square root or something, then we can always definitely see inside of this perimeter, even though other two-dimensional things maybe can't do that because they have one-dimensional vision. We have two-dimensional vision. We can just look
that
inside.
That sounds like a very fun way to stalk someone as an alien.
Yes, I will go to the fourth dimension and stalk you in the fourth dimension.
Nice. But like, what I find interesting here is that like we don't actually have a second dimensional like civilization we could like observe because evolution once again basically made the first living being third dimensional, and then so far we haven't developed the ability to mutate into a different dimension.
Or maybe it can exist, but then the existence of a third dimension and fourth dimensional time just does not let it because it just flips off.
So we're saying that the universe does not allow for any beings other than a third dimensional one.
Maybe, but we don't know fourth, fifth, sixth, but spatial dimensional civilizations because we haven't perceived them. But since our organs aren't spilling out magically, into the fourth dimension, I guess we could say that. I guess you could technically say that's true.
Okay, that makes sense. So back on dimensions again,
Yeah,
on the
dimensions.
fourth, fifth one. How would you describe geometric fourth dimension then?
Geometric fourth dimension is like the geometric third dimension with another axis. Worst explanation ever. I mean, we have the book Things to Make and Do in the Fourth Dimension, and that explains much of kind of like the visualization not part, but
Okay, but you know how in the Big Bang, the idea is that six dimensions split off from the four dimensions? Could one of them be the geometric fourth dimension?
is it scientific dimensions or spatial dimensions?
Yeah, because there's two dimension definitions. One's the time one, one's the geometric ones.
Yeah, this is why you should all not spell you should spell geometric dimensions with a T instead of an S. So geometric dimensions spelled DIMENTIONS, and then scientific dimension should be spelled DIMENSIONS in order to differentiate.
One problem, it costs them too much energy and it will completely screw over most translations of... Because trying to force a change on the scientific community has always resulted in dangerous stuff. Like, you ever heard of you ever heard of the current case? Like in electricity? The current
The current current.
the current current is actually basically a outdated one, because back then people thought that charges were positive, but then the actual charge actually was negative, so we had to actually flip around everything. But it costs too much time and effort and energy to actually implement that changes
So I guess
in every single point scientific community in the world. So
then I guess for now, everything that relates to spatial dimensions can also have a evil twin in scientific dimensions, and everything in scientific dimensions can have an evil twin in the spatial dimensions.
we're saying that geometric fourth dimension and the spatial fourth dimensions are linked somehow.
Are they linked?
Are they linked?
I
I mean, I guess we'll never know. But
no, they are linked, because if you want to graph them, then you can't. If you're in geometric fourth dimension and you want to graph four axes, then it's a lot easier to graph the scientific four axes than in third dimension. So they're kind of linked.
That's kind of terrible reason though, because it's like, oh, this data is easier to graph than this data, so we'll just graph this data instead.
Not that. It's like, you know how we only have three axes, and if you had a fourth one, everything gets screwed up.
Yes.
If you put that into the fourth dimension and straighten out the axes so that it'll be 90 degrees to every single other one, then all the data wouldn't be messed up. You'll be able to see it clearly. Imagine you have three-dimensional vision.
So the conclusion of your point is, time equals geometry.
Not exactly. It's just that it's easier to see. Sorry. It's like you don't go around and see a bunch of three graphs with three axes. It's mostly two axes because it's easier to see. Kind of like
there are graphs in three axes though. They're basically like a weird version of a scatter plot where you basically have three axes and like a square, and you basically plot points on it.
Yes, but if you ask for three-dimensional applications to your two-dimensional rules, they always say, "Oh, I don't know." So, I mean, our statistics teacher is amazing, but it's just that we want applications to multiple dimensions because we're annoying like that.
So we're saying that spatial dimensions and geometric dimensions are like basically the same because it's easier to graph if they were assumed to be the same.
It's not the same, but they're related.
How so?
Because of the graphing thing. This is going to be edited out, no?
I mean, I don't really care at this point. Anyway, if they're considered the same in terms of graphing, then
they're not the same in terms of graphing.
But you basically said that
it becomes easier to graph when going up in the same dimension.
So it's easier to make an assumption. So is many other assumptions in the scientific community, and it's never done. Why? Because it's never the same. I don't think time and geometric fourth dimensions can be the same, because time is a different representation of what fourth dimension can be.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah, but if you're assuming the same, it's easier. But you can't do that because that's not true.
Yes, they're not the same.
Exactly. But you just said that it's better to have them assumed to be that way.
No,
So.
I never said that they were better.
That's what you implied earlier, though.
I'll stop.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry. No. Sorry. Sorry about that. I'll stop.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of tired.
Sorry about that.
Oh, so any last comments on this?
What?
Any last comments on this?
Last comments? Rubber ducky object scale?
Rubber ducky what?
Rubber ducky object scale? Sorry.
Rubber ducky object scale?
It's like, if you see like a water bottle, there's too many like versions of a water bottle that if you asked 100 people to draw a water bottle, you'd probably get like maybe, a varying amount of responses. But if you say to someone, draw a rubber ducky, you get like similar responses.
Isn't it because the rubber ducky is like more standardized because there's like one real pattern, which is basically a huge duckling?
Yes, I guess. Well, they're more standardized, but it's like, you wouldn't put, what's something that's as standardized as a rubber ducky? Like,
Golf ball.
you wouldn't put a golf ball on earrings and market them as like a cute fashion item, but you could with rubber ducky.
I mean, I think a golf ball is pretty cute because it's a perfect spheroid that has perfectly sized engravings in it that perfectly matches what we want each other, and the spaces between them are pretty perfectly even too.
Yes, but like, maybe to like the untrained eye, to people who don't look at golf balls 24/7, they might think it's like, I don't know, a weird version of a baseball, some kind of sensor, because we use like like a half of a golf ball like sensor in robotics and engineering technology class. Or they might think like it's a ping pong ball or something. But if you see a rubber ducky, it'll be like, oh, is it, I don't know, something.
So are you saying that dimensions ultimately are just in the eye of the beholder?
Everything is in the eye of the beholder, I guess.
But you can't say everything is relative or everything's eye in the beholder, and because that just invalidates everything, doesn't it?
But then also validates everything simultaneously.
How would it validate everything? Because if you try to validate something, everybody's going to be like, that's wrong in my perspective, so it's wrong.
But then it's Schrodinger's cat situation.
Schrodinger's cat is absolutes. This is not absolutes. This is relative.
Relative. But
Yeah.
then you can never have truth then. Because then you can say that,
I mean, what is truth? Isn't the truth something that everyone agrees to? Because if that's the case, then nothing is ever true, because there will always be at least one person who doesn't believe in something.
no, but maybe not just believe in something, but alternate proofs. Like, for example, if you say not rubber ducky object scale, but
Rubber ducky object scale is RDO, as in it reminds me of DDO attacks. Denial out of service.
sorry about that. So if you say like 1 + 1 = 2,
Yes?
right? But
Yes.
then if you use like clock time, then it becomes 1 hour plus 1 hour = 2. Or if we read it, then it's 1:00 plus 1:00 = 2:00. But it can also be represented as 0:60.
Me 120.
Sorry. This is why I failed arithmetic in elementary school.
You know what's problematic with this idea, though? Say you're trying to do 8 + 8. Arithmetically, it returns 16, but time-wise, it returns 4 p.m.
Yes, so that's the thing, that you can say that this is not true because this exists. This time representation adding exists.
But most people will probably agree that 1 + 1 = true is the truth. So where did that come from?
What?
But most people agree that 1 + 1 = true is a truth. So where did that come from?
I guess because this is the standardized kind of system that we use.
I see.
So maybe we should...
So standardize everything, basically.
Not exactly. In the book, here's looking at Euclid. In like the introduction, they talk about a group of people that's never been exposed to numbers, so they don't really have a necessity to use numbers at all. So they only have like words for numbers up to 5, but then if you say like, oh, what's 1 + 1, they wouldn't be able to comprehend it like grammatically or logically because it just doesn't exist in their language. So maybe that's also kind of a thing to consider about when standardizing things. This is turning into like a social justice warrior rant.
What's wrong with that, though? No, but I think that's kind of interesting because that means that it's ultimately any truth that we know is ultimately derived from culture.
Yes.
So basically, society.
Yay, everything relates back to society.
Why not?
But then everything in society relates back to biology. which relates back to chemistry,
which relates back to physics,
which relates back to mathematics,
which relates back to computer science,
which relates back to logic,
which relates back to philosophy,
which philosophy relates back to the society.
which relates back to biology.
Nice. Circular proofs.
Yeah, circular proofs. They're definitely very fun.
Very fun indeed. Doesn't get anywhere.
Yep. Well, that was fun.
Dimensions to physics, back dimensions to the dimensional physics, and then rubber duckies, and then adding numbers, and then
See,
standardizing.
this is why
things.
rambling is fun.
Yay.
I mean, it was fun, right?
Yes, it was fun.
Ah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's really all I have here for today. What?
Well, what's on next week?
Dun, dun, dun. I don't know.
Are we gonna interview Evan for the first time? Get interviewed with Evan Micah Weinberg?
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yes. We're probably gonna get C's and D's for calling him Micah by his first name.
No, we'll get an F minus.
It's impossible to get an F minus in RNET class.
No. He will make a way. He will program Power School to give us an F minus.
Nice.
Well, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Max's Money Podcasts. We'll see you next week. You want to say anything? You want to say anything to them?
Fourth dimension.
And thank you.
How long was that? Is it still recording?
It's still recording, yes. We will include this part just for the sake of it.